The Dragon King cut down Nerissa Kest's Ember Net because safety looked ugly above a ceremony. The first rope fell before the treaty musicians had finished tuning their glass horns. It did not fall like ordinary cord. It unraveled in the air, glowing red at every severed heat thread, then struck the transparent floor of the Glass Skybridge with a soft hiss. Below the bridge, the whole city of Veyrath dropped away in pale towers, bronze roofs, and morning mist. Above it, Sky Treaty banners streamed between suspended arches of crystal and gold. The court applauded when the net came down. That was the wound, not the cutting, the applause. Nerissa stood beside the western anchor post, with her hands still wrapped in heat cloth, watching workers lower the ember net she had woven through 3 sleepless nights. Her fingers were blistered. Her throat tasted of smoke. Soot clung to her dark work coat where she had leaned too close to old Dragonfire threads, testing every crossing by hand. Sky Marshal Rellan Croft stood on the ceremonial stair with a silver command hook in one hand and a calm smile on his face. "The Glass Skybridge must appear open," he said, loud enough for the nobles and envoys to hear. "A royal sky treaty cannot take place under a trapmaker's roof." A few guests laughed. Trapmaker. That was what they called a woman after they had forgotten why they hired her to catch falling fire. Nerissa looked up at the emptying sky. "It is not a roof." Rellan glanced down at her. "Then what is it?" "A boundary." He smiled wider. "Between what and what?" "Between celebration and burning." The laughter thinned, but it did not stop. At the far end of the bridge, Dragon King Auren Veyrath emerged beneath the procession arch. He wore black ceremonial armor beneath a mantle of molten gold silk, the cloth moving around him like contained flame. His face was still and severe, beautiful only in the dangerous way forged blades were beautiful. A thin burn scar crossed the side of his left hand, visible when he removed one glove to receive the treaty flame from a sky priest. Nerissa saw the scar. She had not known he kept one. Auren looked at the half-lowered net, then at Rellan. "Why is the safety rig still visible?" The word safety gave Nerissa one breath of hope. Rellan killed it smoothly. "Because Keeper Kest refused ceremonial removal until I ordered the workers to proceed." Auren's gaze moved to Nerissa. Not warm, not cruel. Measuring. "The sky has been cleared?" he asked. Rellan bowed. 3 times. Upper patrols found no loose fire, no unstable ember drift, no hostile flare traces from rival houses. Nerissa's fingers tightened around the heat cloth. "The upper patrols checked sky lanes. They did not test falling heat." Rellan sighed. "There is no falling heat. There is old Dragonfire above the eastern span." A murmur passed through the envoys. Auren's eyes sharpened. "You found Dragonfire?" "I found heat drag in the glass ribs." The net was not decoration. It was catching what had not fallen yet. Rellan gave a soft laugh. "Majesty, she has said this all morning. She believes the bridge remembers fire that is not there." Nerissa looked at the Dragon King. "Glass remembers weight. Ember remembers fall." The Sky Treaty attendants shifted uneasily beneath their gold veils. The coastal envoys stood near the inner arch, pale and silent. Nerissa did not hate them. They had not cut the net. The court had simply used their ceremony as an excuse to remove the thing that kept everyone alive. Auren looked toward the eastern span. For one breath, his expression changed. Barely. Nerissa saw it because she was used to watching for small fractures before disaster. Fear, buried quickly. Then Rellan stepped beside him. "Majesty, every safety keeper sees danger when denied authority. If we allow visible nets over the royal bridge right, the rival houses will say Veyrath fears its own sky." There it was. Not safety against danger, appearance against shame. Auren's scarred hand closed once. Nerissa watched that hand and understood too late that Rellan had chosen the perfect wound to press. The king had survived some sky failure he did not want remembered. Rellan held out the command hook. "Say the word. Majesty, let the sky be open." Nerissa stepped forward. "If the net comes down, evacuate the workers from the lower span." Relan's smile vanished. You do not give commands on the royal bridge. No, she said. I give warnings before commanders need excuses. The Glass Skybridge went quiet. Auren's gaze returned to her, harder now. You are certain fire will fall? No. The court breathed relief. Nerissa did not. I am prepared because certainty arrives after impact. No one laughed at first. Then someone did. Softly. That was enough. Auren looked up at the treaty banners, the open sky, the waiting houses, the procession forming beneath the arches, and the ugly Ember Net hanging across his beautiful bridge. Cut it down, he said. The command was not shouted. It did not need to be. Relan touched the silver hook to the main anchor. The Ember Net snapped. Red heat threads peeled from the crystal ribs and fell in smoking coils. Workers dragged them aside quickly, ashamed of touching what the court had decided was unnecessary. Nerissa moved with them, gathering the cut ends before they could be stepped on. One small dignity. One last correct handling. The Ember Net did not choose keepers. It did not bless ceremonies. It did not crown the hands that wove it. It held sequence. What fire fell first, what thread took weight, what heat had been cut away before the people below knew to run. Nerissa pressed the severed threads together in her palm. They were still warm, too warm. Above the eastern span, the air rippled. Not much. Enough for her to look up. Auren, she said. The court froze at the naked use of his name. She did not care. Move them off the lower glass. Relan snapped. Seize her. The first guard reached for Nerissa. Then the sky split. A ribbon of dragonfire tore loose from nothing above the eastern span, black gold at the center and white at the edge. It fell without roar, without warning, beautiful as a star, and heavy enough to turn the Glass Skybridge into a grave. Envoys screamed. Guests scattered. Auren moved toward the falling fire, hand lifting as if he could command flame already in descent. He could not reach it. No one could. The severed threads in Nerissa's hands burned open. Not upward. Outward. Across the empty air. Every cut strand of the Ember Net rose from the floor, red and furious, reweaving itself above the procession crowd. Burning lines shot from anchor to anchor, catching the falling dragonfire in a web of heat so bright the glass beneath their feet turned crimson. The impact struck. The bridge groaned. But the fire did not fall through. It hung above them, trapped in the return net Nerissa had been shamed for making. Silence swallowed the entire sky. Relan's face went pale. Auren looked from the dragonfire burning above the procession to Nerissa Kest standing beneath it with severed threads glowing around her wrists. His voice did not soften. What was hidden above my skybridge? The returned Ember Net tightened around the trapped fire, and one red line burned across its rejoined threads. Falling dragonfire was above the eastern span before the sky was cleared. Relan Croft answered before the returned Ember Net finished tightening around the dragonfire. Old residue, he said. The words came too cleanly for a man standing beneath a burning sky. Above the Glass Skybridge, the rejoined Ember Net held the fallen dragonfire in a web of red heat threads. The trapped fire rolled against the net like a living sun, black gold at its heart and white at its edges. Every time it pressed downward, the crystal ribs of the bridge groaned, and every guest beneath it remembered they were walking on glass over a city. Dragon King Auren Veyrath did not look away from the fire. What was hidden above my skybridge? He asked again. Relan bowed, controlled even now. Nothing hidden, Majesty. Dragonfire residue can gather in old aerial corridors and collapse suddenly when ceremony heat rises. The upper patrols cleared the sky properly. Nerissa Kest stood beneath the burning net with severed threads wrapped around her wrists like red chains. Her palms stung. Heat pressed against her face until her eyes watered, but she did not lower her head. The upper patrols cleared lanes, she said, not falling heat. Relan turned sharply. You keep inventing a second sky because the first one did not obey you. Nerissa looked at the dragonfire struggling above them. An open sky can still be a ceiling for fire. A murmur passed through the envoys. Auren's eyes shifted to her. Not soft, not grateful, focused. "Can you lower it?" he asked. "No." The court went still. Relin seized the answer. She cannot control it. Her net returned by accident, and now she holds royal envoys under burning fire. Nerissa did not look at him. "I said no because the lower span is still full of workers." Auren's jaw tightened. Below the transparent bridge, small figures in ash-gray work coats clung to the maintenance rails beneath the eastern ribs. They had been lowering decorative treaty lanterns when the fire fell. If Nerissa released the court Dragonfire now, even safely, the heat wash could cook the underside of the span before those workers reached the service stairs. She pointed through the glass. "Evacuate them first." Relin snapped. "The procession guests stand beneath the greater danger, and the workers stand closest to the heat path." Auren looked down. For one breath, Nerissa saw the calculation in him. King, commander, survivor, man trained to measure lives by rank before disaster punished him for it. Then he gave the order. "Clear the lower span." Relin's face tightened. "Majesty." Now, guards moved. Workers began crawling along the underside rails toward the western service stair. The trapped fire roared silently above them, pressing into the Ember Net hard enough that several threads turned white. Nerissa lifted both hands. The net responded, but not like a beast obeying a queen. It tightened where the fire weighed most. It held because it had been woven to hold. Nothing more. Relin watched the pattern of tightening threads and recovered himself. A safety device reacting under stress does not prove prior danger. It proves she made a dramatic rig. Nerissa said, "No, it proves weight." Auren stepped closer. Heat lit the planes of his severe face and flashed along the scar on his left hand. "Read it." Nerissa did not move at once. He had cut down her work. He had let Relin turn preparation into shame. He had listened only when fire hung above his envoys. "You ask because the sky is burning," she said, "not because I warned you." His expression hardened. He did not apologize. Good. She would not have believed him if he had. "Read it," he repeated. Nerissa turned to the western anchor post where the first severed cord had fallen. She pressed the burned end between two heat-clothed fingers and drew it toward the light of the trapped Dragonfire. The Ember Net flared along one thread. "Not all. One. The net does not tell stories," she said. "It holds impact." Relin gave a cold laugh. "Convenient." Nerissa ignored him. Severed thread. The red line pulsed. "Eastern span heat drog." A second line burned across the glass rib nearest the fallen fire. "Anchor strain." The western post groaned, and old scorch marks appeared beneath its gold ceremonial covering. Auren's eyes narrowed. Those marks were covered. "They were dressed for the procession," Nerissa said. "Not repaired." Relin stepped forward. "Ceremonial plating is standard. Then why is it blistering from the inside?" The gold plate along the eastern anchor began to bubble. Beneath it, the crystal rib glowed dull red, as if it had been carrying heat long before the net returned. The envoys backed away. Nerissa lifted another severed strand, patrol clearance mark. A pale blue seal appeared on the strand, 3 sky strokes and a marshal's notch. Relin's notch. His voice sharpened. "Upper patrol clearance, as I said." Nerissa turned the strand. On its underside, a red burn crossed beneath the blue seal. Auren saw it. "What is that?" "Falling fire weight." The trapped Dragonfire above them pressed downward again, and the red burn on the strand brightened in answer. Nerissa's voice stayed level. The eastern span carried falling heat before this clearance was signed. Relin said, "Impossible. Fire cannot weigh on glass before it falls." "Ember can." The net tightened overhead. A single line of red fire ran from the eastern span to the patrol clearance seal, then down the severed thread in Nerissa's hand. It did not name Relin. It did not explain motive. It did not save the court from needing courage. It held sequence. Severed thread. Eastern span heat drog. Anchor strain. Patrol clearance mark. Falling fire weight. The workers reached the western service stair. One by one, they climbed off the lower span. Only then did Nerissa lower her hands slightly, easing the net high enough that the trapped dragonfire stopped crushing the bridge ribs. Auren watched the pressure lift from the glass. His face changed. Barely. Not regret. Not yet. Recognition. The Ember Net burned brighter above the procession, and one red line wrote itself across the rejoined threads. Eastern span carried falling heat before sky clearance was signed. Rellencroft went still. Auren looked from the burning warning to the marshal's blue clearance mark. His voice did not soften. Who signed the sky clear? The blue clearance mark trembled on the severed strand in Nerissa Kest's hand. Above the Glass Skybridge, the returned Ember Net held the trapped Dragonfire high enough that the procession guests could breathe, but not high enough for anyone to forget it was there. Heat rolled through the crystal arches. Treaty banners curled at their edges. The city below looked impossibly far away. Sky Marshal Rellencroft bowed with the careful calm of a man who had practiced surviving questions. "All sky clearances pass through my office, Majesty," he said, "but patrol signatures are made by patrol captains." Dragon King Auren Veyrath did not look away from him. "Name?" "Captain Voust, Eastern Upper Lane." "Bring him." Rellen's jaw tightened. "He is stationed above the North Tower." "Then send wings." 2 dragon wing guards moved at once. Nerissa did not watch them leave. She kept her eyes on the strand. The red burn beneath the blue seal had not faded. If anything, it had grown deeper, as if the falling heat hated being called sudden. Auren turned to her. "Can the net hold?" "For a while." "How long?" Nerissa looked up at the burning web, reading strain by color instead of hope. Red meant holding. White meant tearing soon. Blue at the crossing knots meant old heat waking where it should have been dead. "Long enough if no one lies to it," she said. Rellen gave a short laugh. "Now Thread has moral judgment?" "No," Nerissa said. "Thread has memory. Men are the ones who pretend not to." The court heard that. So did Auren. His expression remained hard, but his scarred left hand flexed once at his side. Rellen stepped closer to the Dragon King. "Majesty, every moment we keep foreign envoys under trapped dragonfire worsens the insult. Let my flame wardens draw it off." Nerissa's head snapped toward him. "No." Rellen looked at her as if she were ash on polished glass. "You do not command the sky, and you do not drain falling fire through a strained bridge rib. Flame wardens are trained for aerial release, not through a net that is holding impact weight." Auren's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Nerissa hated that word from him now. "Explain." As if she had not been explaining since before the first rope fell. Still, the workers had not all cleared the outer maintenance chains, and the envoys were still breathing beneath fire. Pride could wait, lives could not. "If they draw the dragonfire sideways," she said, pointing to the eastern span, "the weight shifts from the net to the bridge rib. The rib already carried heat before clearance. It will crack from inside." Rellen said, "Speculation." Nerissa raised the severed strand. "Sequence." The Ember Net pulsed above them. Not obedient. Not magical proof of everything. A woven thing doing the one job it had been shamed for doing. Nerissa pressed the strand against the nearest anchor plate. Patrol clearance mark. Blue light glowed. Eastern heat drag. Red answered beneath it. Anchor strain. The western post groaned. Warning strand. A thin black line appeared along the severed thread, one Nerissa had not seen before because ceremonial ash had hidden it. Her breath caught. Auren saw her face change. "What?" Nerissa turned the strand slowly. The black line ran clean across one crossing knot. Not burned by falling fire. "Good. This was my warning strand," she said. Rellen's mouth tightened, a technical term for another cord. "No. The warning strand is the first thread that tightens when old heat presses before impact. It tells the net where danger is gathering." Auren looked up at the burning web, and it was cut down with the rest. Nerissa shook her head. Before the rest. Silence moved through the bridge. Even the trapped Dragonfire seemed to press more quietly. Rellan spoke first. Impossible. We cut the main anchors in full view of the court. You cut the visible net in full view, Nerissa said. Someone cut the warning strand before the procession formed. Rellan's voice cooled. You are accusing my office because a damaged thread supports your panic. I am accusing the damage. Auren stepped closer to the anchor. Can you read who cut it? No. Rellan's eyes flashed with relief. Nerissa looked at him. But I can read when. The relief vanished. She drew the warning strand beneath the trapped Dragonfire. Heat ran through it, thin and red, then stopped at the black cut. Beneath the cut, a faint gold dust appeared. Ceremonial polish. The kind brushed over anchors after safety inspection, before the Sky Treaty procession opened. Nerissa's voice lowered. The warning strand was cut before the gold polish was laid. Auren looked to Rellan. When was polish laid? Rellan answered carefully. After final bridge dressing. And final bridge dressing happened when? After sky clearance. Nerissa held the strand higher. The Ember Net tightened above them, and a red line traveled from the eastern span through the black-cut warning thread, then into the blue patrol seal. It held sequence. Eastern heat drag. Warning strand cut. Gold polish laid. Sky clearance signed. Procession opened. The court did not laugh now. Auren's face had gone still in the way mountains went still before eruption. Your clearance came after a warning strand had already been cut. Rellan bowed again, lower this time. Majesty, a warning strand could have been damaged by bridge dressing crews. It does not prove intent. No, Nerissa said. It proves the sky was called clear after the net had been made blind. The returned Ember Net burned brighter, its red threads crossing above the procession like a wound refusing to close. Across the severed strand in Nerissa's hand, one line of fire wrote itself clear. Warning strand was cut before sky clearance was signed. Auren looked from the burning line to Rellan Croft. His voice did not soften. Who ordered the bridge dressed after the warning strand was cut? The gold polish on the eastern anchor began to blister. No one touched it. No one needed to. Heat pushed from beneath the ceremonial shine in slow, swelling bubbles, turning the perfect surface ugly from the inside. Above the Glass Skybridge, the returned Ember Net held the trapped Dragonfire in a red web that trembled with every breath of wind. Below the transparent floor, the evacuated workers clung to the western service stair, watching the bridge that had nearly buried them. Nerissa Kest kept the severed warning strand raised in one heat-clothed hand. Dragon King Auren Veyrath stood beside the eastern anchor, his scarred left hand bare now, his face carved into dangerous stillness. Sky Marshal Rellan Croft looked not frightened, but offended. The bridge dressing order would have come from ceremony stewards, Rellan said. My office clears sky. We do not polish anchors. Nerissa looked at the blistering gold. Your office signed the sky clear after the warning strand was cut. A damaged strand is not a sky threat. It is when the strand was made to warn about falling heat. Rellan turned to Auren. Majesty, she is building a case from craft language no one here can verify. Nerissa almost laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because that had always been the easiest way to erase workers. Call their knowledge too small to matter until the bridge fell. Auren's gaze moved to her. Can it be verified? She did not soften toward him. Now you want the work to speak clearly. His jaw tightened. He did not apologize. Good. The fire above them pressed down, and 3 net crossings flared white. Nerissa looked up. First, no one touches the anchor. Rellan's mouth thinned. You do not command the bridge. No, she said. I keep it from becoming a grave. Auren gave one short order. No one touches it. The marshal's expression cooled, but he stepped back. Nerissa knelt by the eastern anchor. The glass beneath the gold plate glowed a dull red, not from the Dragonfire above them, but from heat already stored in the rib. She placed the cut warning strand against the blistering polish. The Ember Net responded. Not loudly, not dramatically. A single red line ran from the trapped Dragonfire overhead to the warning strand, then down into the gold-plated anchor. The line stopped where the polish had bubbled. "Warning strand cut," Nerissa said. The black line on the thread pulsed. Gold polish laid. The blistered anchor answered with a red flare. Heat scar covered. Beneath the gold, a long burn mark appeared through the shine, shaped like a dragging claw of fire across the glass rib. The envoys recoiled. Auren's eyes narrowed. "How old?" Nerissa pressed 2 fingers near the burn without touching it. "Older than the fall. Newer than last moonrise." Relin gave a sharp breath. "Impossible." "No," she said. "Inconvenient." The Ember Net tightened overhead, holding the Dragonfire higher, as if it too had found the sequence and refused to let it slide. But one strand near the eastern crossbeam began to smoke white. Nerissa saw it. Auren did too. "How long?" he asked again. "Less if men keep lying near it." Relin snapped. "Thread does not care for truth." Nerissa looked at him. "Thread cares for strain. Lies create more of it." Auren stepped closer to the blistered anchor. "Read the dressing order." Nerissa's fingers paused. "The net cannot read orders," she said. "Only what touched heat." "Then read what touched it." She turned the warning strand over. A faint gold smear clung to the cut, mixed with ash and a tiny thread of blue seal wax. Not patrol wax, not craft wax. Marshal wax. Relin went very still. Nerissa noticed. So did Auren. She held the strand toward the light. "Gold polish, heat scar, marshal wax." Relin recovered quickly. "My seal wax is used across Skybridge operations. It may mark supply approval." "Supply approval happens before dressing," Nerissa said. "This wax is pressed over burn ash." Auren's voice was low. "Meaning?" "The anchor burned before marshal wax touched it." The Glass Skybridge groaned beneath them. Somewhere below, a worker cried out from the service stair. Nerissa looked down. A lower glass rib was glowing red where heat had traveled through the eastern anchor into the underframe. The workers were off the span, but not far enough from the heat wash if the rib cracked. She raised her hands and pulled 2 strands of the returned net tighter. The trapped Dragonfire rolled upward with a furious silent flare. Pain shot through her wrists. She swallowed it. Auren saw. His first instinct was to step toward her. She looked at him once. He stopped. Good. Let him learn there were kinds of help that arrived too late to be touched. Relin's voice cut through the heat. "Majesty, this is exactly why the net should not have been used. It is pulling fire into the bridge structure." Nerissa did not turn. The bridge structure was already carrying fire. "You cannot know that. I can read what men covered." She pressed the warning strand flat against the blistered plate. The gold polish split. Beneath it, the glass rib revealed 3 heat scars. One old, one fresh, one still breathing red. All 3 had been smoothed over by ceremonial dressing. The court saw beauty peel away from danger. No one laughed now. The Ember Net burned with one continuous line from the eastern span to the anchor, then back into the severed warning strand. It held sequence. Eastern heat drag. Warning strand cut. Heat scar exposed. Marshal wax pressed over ash. Gold dressing laid. Sky clearance signed. Procession opened. Auren looked at Relin. "Your wax touched a burned anchor before my sky was cleared." Relin bowed his head. "Then someone misused marshal wax." Nerissa looked at him. "Someone with access." His eyes flashed. Auren's hand closed into a fist. But the net did not name who. Not yet. It did only what it had always done, carried the weight others wanted hidden. Above them, a red line burned across the rejoined ember threads, bright enough to stain every polished face in the court. Bridge dressing covered eastern heat scars before sky clearance was signed. Auren looked from the warning to the blistered marshal wax. His voice did not soften. Who ordered living heat sealed under treaty gold? Relin Croft did not answer with a name. He answered with a rank. "Ceremony stewards oversee treaty gold," he said. "Sky marshals do not choose polish." The trapped Dragonfire rolled above the Glass Skybridge. Held inside Nerissa Kest's returned Ember Net. Red threads crossed and tightened across the open air, each one bright with strain. Beneath them, the eastern anchor had begun to lose its beauty. Gold peeled back from the glass rib in hot curls, exposing the heat scars hidden under ceremony. Dragon King Auren Veyrath stared at the blistered anchor, as if the bridge itself had lied to him. "Who ordered living heat sealed under treaty gold?" he asked again. Rellen's bow deepened by a fraction. "Majesty, if living heat was sealed, then a steward failed inspection." Nerissa looked at him. "A steward can polish glass. A steward cannot override a safety hold." The marshal's eyes cut to her. That was enough to tell her she had stepped on the right thread. Auren heard it too. "Safety hold?" Nerissa pointed to the eastern anchor. "When a bridge rib carries active heat, safety keepers lock the span. No dressing, no procession load, no treaty banners, no workers below the heat path." Rellen said, "There was no active heat when the span was prepared." Nerissa lifted the warning strand. "The bridge disagrees." The Ember Net pulsed overhead, still catching the weight of what everyone had been told was not there. Auren looked up, then down through the transparent floor where the last maintenance workers were being pulled fully onto the western platform. Their ash-gray coats were streaked with sweat and soot. One of them clutched his side as if the heat from below had already kissed through his ribs. Auren's mouth tightened. "Bring the bridge dressing ledger." Rellen turned sharply. "Majesty, the ledger is kept below the western arch, sending guards through a strained bridge." "I did not ask where it was kept." A dragon wing guard ran. Nerissa kept her hands raised, fingers spread into the ember threads. Every adjustment burned. The net had returned because it had been cut with falling heat already pressing into the span. But returned did not mean endless. No woven thing could hold forever when men kept adding weight. Auren saw the strain in her wrists again. This time he did not step toward her. He gave an order instead. "Clear, everyone behind the inner arches." The envoys moved quickly now. Beauty no longer mattered when fire had a shape. Rellen watched the court retreat and recovered his voice. "Majesty, panic will damage the treaty more than heat." Auren looked at him. "Heat kills faster." The marshal went silent. The guard returned with a narrow glass ledger bound in gold wire. Its cover had begun to sweat from the bridge warmth. Auren took it, but Nerissa spoke before he opened it. "Do not hold it near the trapped fire." He looked at her. She looked back. Gold wire carries false heat well. Auren handed the ledger to a stone clerk instead. Rellen gave a small, bitter smile. "Now even books are accused." "No," Nerissa said. "Only men who hide behind them." The clerk opened the ledger on a portable slate. Names and orders shimmered in etched glass lines, banner placements, lantern routes, envoy path timing, bridge dressing, lower span crew instructions. Auren's eyes scanned quickly. "Dressing order. Ceremony steward." Rellen inclined his head. "As I said." Nerissa did not relax. "Read the line beneath." The clerk hesitated. Auren's gaze snapped to him. "Read it." The clerk swallowed. "Safety hold lifted by Sky Authority." The Glass Skybridge seemed to quiet beneath those words. Auren looked at Rellen. "Sky Authority." Rellen's face remained composed. "Standard if patrol clearance is complete." Nerissa shook her head. "Not when a keeper has filed heat. Drag." Rellen turned on her. "You filed concern, not proof." "I filed a hold." The words settled like a dropped blade. Auren looked at the ledger. "Where?" Nerissa reached for the margin, but Rellen spoke over her. "Keeper objections are logged separately. They do not halt royal proceedings unless countersigned." "That is not true," Nerissa said. His eyes narrowed. "Careful." "No, you be careful near a burning bridge. For one breath." Even Auren looked at her differently. Not as a woman to be managed, as a person who had stopped kneeling to danger long ago. Nerissa tapped the lower corner of the glass ledger. Heat bloomed under her fingertip. A hidden line appeared beneath the ceremony steward's order, written in dull red. "Keeper hold filed, eastern span falling heat." Then another line, pressed over it in blue. Hold, dismissed. Ceremonial obstruction. Auren's face hardened. Who dismissed it? The clerk's voice shook. Sky Authority. Relin spread his hands. My office must prevent lower officials from obstructing royal treaty rights. Nerissa felt something cold move through her despite the heat. Lower officials. That was how men buried warnings without sounding cruel. They made the person smaller than the danger she named. Auren's voice dropped. Read the next line. The clerk did. Lower maintenance crew returned to eastern underside for lantern alignment after safety hold lifted. Below the glass, one of the rescued workers began to curse. Softly at first, then louder. Nerissa closed her eyes for half a breath. They had not only covered living heat, they had sent workers back beneath it. Auren looked down through the bridge, his scarred hand closing slowly. They were ordered under the heat path. Relin said, no one knew there was heat. Nerissa opened her eyes. The hold knew. The Ember Net flared. A red line ran from the eastern heat scars to the ledger margin, then through the dismissed safety hold and down into the glass floor where the workers had been crawling moments before. It did not name guilt completely. It did not show motive. It held sequence. Heat drag filed. Safety hold dismissed. Treaty, gold laid. Lower workers returned. Sky clearance signed. Falling Dragonfire released. Across the glass ledger, Red Fire wrote one clean warning. Safety hold was dismissed before workers were sent beneath the eastern heat path. Relin Croft went still. Auren looked from the rescued workers to Nerissa's blistered hands inside the burning threads. His voice did not soften. Who had authority to dismiss her hold? The glass ledger began to sweat red light. It ran along the etched lines like blood through cracks, gathering beneath the words Nerissa Kest had filed before the Sky Treaty procession ever formed. Keeper hold filed. Eastern span falling heat. Hold dismissed. Ceremonial obstruction. Lower maintenance crew returned to eastern underside. Above the Glass Skybridge, the returned Ember Net strained against the trapped Dragonfire. The fire pressed down in slow pulses, and every pulse made the crystal ribs answer with a deep, sick groan. Guests had retreated behind the inner arches now, but no one had left the bridge court. Fear held them more tightly than ceremony ever had. Dragon King Auren Veyrath looked at the ledger, then at Sky Marshal Relin Croft. Who had authority to dismiss her hold? He asked. Relin bowed. Any ranked Sky authority may dismiss a keeper hold if it obstructs royal movement after patrol clearance. Nerissa looked at him. Not a falling, heat hold. His eyes sharpened. All holds must be weighed against state necessity. State necessity does not make fire lighter. Auren's gaze moved to her. Still hard. Still not apologetic. Read the dismissal, he said. Nerissa did not move at once. Her wrists burned where the severed ember thread circled them, and sweat ran cold under the soot at her neck. The net was holding because it had been woven to catch falling dragonfire, not because it loved being right. You keep asking my work to explain itself after cutting it down, she said. Auren's jaw tightened. He did not defend himself. That was wise. Nerissa turned back to the ledger. The Ember Net cannot read rank. It can read pressure. Relin gave a thin smile, conveniently vague. No, she said. Vague is calling a warning an obstruction. The red light in the glass ledger thickened. Nerissa placed the severed warning strand across the dismissal line. The strand did not flare all at once. It warmed slowly, as if reluctant to relive the hand that had blinded it. Keeper hold filed, she said. The lower line pulsed red. Falling heat present. The eastern anchor answered with a dull glow. Clearance not yet signed. The blue patrol mark flickered weakly on the severed strand. Dismissal applied. A circle of black gold fire appeared over the ledger line. The court leaned closer despite the danger. Auren's eyes narrowed. That is not patrol seal. No. Nerissa's voice stayed level. It is override heat. Relin spoke too quickly. Override heat is used by Sky officers for urgent ceremony corrections. Not over a safety hold. For royal necessity. For hiding danger. His face hardened. The Ember Net snapped one thin white thread above them. The sound cracked across the sky like bone. Several envoys cried out. Nerissa lifted her right hand and drew two nearby strands inward, redistributing the weight of the trapped Dragonfire. Pain cut from her palm to her elbow. She swallowed it, but Auren saw the flinch. He stepped half a pace toward her. She looked at him. He stopped. Good. This bridge needed orders, not late tenderness. Clear the eastern arch completely, she said. Relin stiffened. The eastern arch holds the treaty flame. Then move the treaty flame. Auren did not hesitate this time. Move it. The priests looked horrified, but they obeyed. The ceremonial flame was lifted from its crystal stand and carried toward the western arch under guard. As it moved, the trapped Dragonfire above shifted hard toward the empty eastern span. Nerissa's breath caught. There, she said. Auren turned sharply. What? The fire leaned away from the treaty flame. Relin said, Dragonfire reacts to Dragonfire. That proves nothing. It proves it was not falling freely. The words struck the bridge, silent. Nerissa pressed the warning strand harder against the ledger. The black-gold override circle stretched into a narrow shape, then formed three hooked marks around a vertical flame. Sky Marshal Authority. Not Steward. Not Patrol Captain. Not General Sky Office. Auren saw it before Relin could speak. His face went colder than the glass beneath them. Your override, he said. Relin bowed lower. My office is override. I oversee all sky movement during royal rites. You dismissed her hold. I dismissed an unproven obstruction after proper patrol clearance. Nerissa looked at the ledger. No. You dismissed the hold before the clearance was signed. Relin's smile vanished. The Ember Net burned brighter overhead. Red light traveled from the eastern heat scar to the severed warning strand, then into the ledger line, then through the black-gold marshal override. It held sequence. Falling heat present. Keeper hold filed. Sky Marshal override applied. Safety hold dismissed. Workers returned. Gold dressing laid. Sky clearance signed. Procession opened. Auren's scarred left hand closed slowly. Nerissa noticed the way his thumb pressed against the old burn. Not for comfort. For control. Something in this bridge, this falling fire, this hidden heat had reached an older wound in him, but his pain could not be allowed to become the center. Not while hers was still holding the fire. The warning burned through the glass ledger in red. Sky Marshal Override dismissed the falling heat hold before clearance was signed. Relin Croft went still. Then he recovered, because powerful men always tried one more door. Majesty, he said, even if my override dismissed the hold, that does not explain why Dragonfire gathered above the eastern span. It only proves I trusted patrol findings. Nerissa looked up. The trapped Dragonfire rolled again, leaning toward the east as if some invisible hook still pulled it from above. No, she said quietly. It proves you made the bridge blind before something was placed where only a blind bridge would miss it. Auren looked from the warning to the fire trapped above his skybridge. His voice did not soften. What was placed above the eastern span? The trapped Dragonfire leaned east again. Not downward. East. Nerissa Kest saw the angle before anyone else did, because falling things had habits. Rain fell straight unless wind took it. Ash wandered. Loose flame climbed when fed. But this fire strained sideways against the returned Ember Net, as if something above the eastern span still called to it. Dragon King Auren Veyrath followed her gaze. What was placed above the eastern span? He asked. Sky Marshal Rellencroft answered with practiced irritation. Nothing was placed. Residual Dragonfire can cling to old sky currents after patrols pass. The treaty flame stirred it loose. Nerissa looked at the ceremonial flame now guarded beneath the western arch. Its gold bowl burned steadily, too far from the eastern span to pull anything that hard. No, she said. That fire is not clinging. Relin turned on her. Now you know the intentions of flame? I know weight. Above them, the Ember Net trembled. Red threads crossed the open air in burning knots, holding the black-gold Dragonfire high over the procession route. One white-hot strand near the eastern arch had begun to thin. Nerissa lifted her left hand, caught the strain through the severed threads around her wrist, and shifted the load back toward the center. Pain flashed through her. Auren saw it. Again, he did not reach for her. This time he gave an order instead. Keep the eastern upper lane closed. No one leaves the sky towers. Rellen's jaw tightened. Majesty, closing the upper lane during treaty rites will look like accusation. Auren did not look at him. Good. The word cut cleanly through the heat. Nerissa did not thank him. He was late to suspicion. Late was still useful, but it was not virtue. She moved toward the eastern anchor, one hand raised to keep the net balanced. The glass beneath her boots glowed faint red from buried heat. The exposed scars under the torn treaty gold breathed like old wounds. Do not step there, Auren said. Nerissa glanced down. A hairline crack had opened under the edge of her boot. She stepped around it. Rellen watched with sharp eyes. If the keeper falls through the bridge, will the net call that evidence too? Nerissa did not look at him. If I fall, it will be because your beautiful floor was hiding a burn. No one laughed. She reached the easternmost cord where one rejoined ember strand angled strangely upward, not toward an anchor post, but toward empty sky above the upper arch. There, she said. Auren stepped close enough to see, not close enough to touch. I see nothing, because the line was cut from below. She pulled the ember strand between both heat-clothed fingers. It resisted, not like cloth, but like a hooked thing trying to stay attached to an invisible nail. Rellen's face changed. Barely. Nerissa felt it more than saw it. She looked up. The fire was not loose. Auren's eyes sharpened. Say it plainly. It was hung. The court went silent beneath the trapped flame. Rellen gave a hard laugh. Hung Dragonfire? Majesty, this is craft superstition dressed as panic. Nerissa held the strand higher. Falling Dragonfire leaves a downward tear. Hung Dragonfire leaves return strain. Auren looked at the net. Can you read the strain? The net can read what pulled it. She hated how exhausted her voice sounded. She hated more that exhaustion made the court listen better than warnings had. Nerissa pressed the angled strand against the eastern anchor scar. Red light ran upward along the thread, then stopped above the arch where empty air shimmered. Falling heat, she said. The trapped fire pulsed. Return strain. The angled strand tightened. Upper pull. A thin circle appeared in the air above the eastern span, not solid, not fully visible, but outlined by heat. A suspended ring made of transparent sky glass. Auren's face went still. What is that? A sky hook, Rellen answered before she could continue. Old bridge equipment. Upper maintenance uses invisible hooks for lantern rigs. Nerissa looked at him. Lantern hooks do not hold Dragonfire weight. They can if misused. Then someone misused one before your patrols cleared the sky. The skyhook flickered above them, its rim glowing red where Dragonfire had rubbed against it. From the ground, it would have been invisible. From the bridge, hidden by banners. From patrol lanes, dismissed as ceremonial rigging if anyone bothered to look. Auren stared upward. Why did the net not catch the hook before? Because the warning strand was cut. The answer landed hard. Sequence. Always sequence. Nerissa drew the severed warning strand from her wrist and lifted it toward the skyhook. The returned Ember Net responded in red lines. Keeper hold filed. Warning strand cut. Sky Marshal override. Safety hold dismissed. Gold dressing laid. Sky clearance signed. Skyhook loaded. Procession opened. Falling Dragonfire released. Rellen's voice sharpened. Loaded is not proven. Nerissa looked at the trapped fire. Then why is it trying to return? She loosened one small thread. Not enough to release the fire. Enough to let the net breathe. The Dragonfire surged eastward toward the invisible hook with such force that the entire bridge shuddered. Envoys screamed behind the arches. Auren threw one arm out. shielding the nearest priest from a shower of hot glass dust. Nerissa snapped the thread tight again. The fire stopped. Caught. Held. Above the eastern span, the skyhook burned fully visible now. Red at its rim, black at its center. No one in the court could pretend it was residue. The Ember Net wrote one burning line across the upward strand. Dragonfire was tethered above the eastern span before the procession opened. Rellan Croft's face hardened into stone. Auren looked from the skyhook to the marshal. His voice did not soften. Who had access to the upper skyhooks? Rellan Croft looked up at the burning skyhook as if it had betrayed proper military etiquette. Upper skyhooks are accessed by maintenance captains, lantern crews, patrol wardens, ceremony stewards, and marshal officers, he said. Access does not equal guilt. Nerissa Kest almost admired the discipline of his voice. The Glass Skybridge groaned beneath them. Above the eastern span, the returned Ember Net held the trapped Dragonfire away from the procession route, but the fire still strained toward the visible skyhook, as if remembering the place where it had been hung. Red threads shuddered through Nerissa's wrists. One more crossing had turned white. Dragon King Auren Veyrath stood between the marshal and the exposed hook, his scarred left hand bare, his face without softness. Bring the upper access ledger, he ordered. Rellan bowed. Majesty, the upper ledger is kept in the north tower. Retrieving it while the lane is sealed may take. Auren's eyes cut to him. Now. A wing guard launched from the western arch, rising fast through the heated air. Nerissa did not watch him go. She watched the hook. The red rim had begun to pulse in uneven beats. Not with the Dragonfire. Against it. There is something tied to the hook, she said. Rellan turned. You said the fire was tethered. Now something else is tied. Both can be true. Convenient again. Nerissa looked at him. Danger usually is, once someone stops denying it. Auren stepped closer to the eastern span. Can you bring it down? No. Rellan seized that too. Then we stand beneath invisible accusations. Nerissa lifted the angled ember strand. I cannot bring the hook down without shifting the fire weight into the bridge rib. Auren understood at once. So we read it where it hangs. She did not thank him for finally following the work. The return net did not give thanks either. It only held. Nerissa drew a small loop from the severed thread around her wrist and fed it upward into the angled strand. Red light climbed the line, thin and controlled. It reached the skyhook, circled once, then flared around something small tied beneath the transparent rim. A token appeared in the heat. Black enamel. 3 silver wings. The mark of House Damar, one of the rival houses gathered for the Sky Treaty. The envoys erupted. A Damar lord shouted from behind the inner arch. That is not ours. Rellan turned sharply toward him. Your house mark hangs from the hook above falling Dragonfire. The lord went pale with fury. Planted. Rellan's voice hardened into command. Or exposed. Auren lifted one hand. The bridge went quiet. Nerissa stared at the token. It hung too cleanly beneath the hook. No soot along its lower edge. No drag burn. No heat bite where Dragonfire should have rolled against it if it had been tied before the fire was loaded. It is wrong, she said. Rellan's expression cooled. Of course it is wrong. Treason often feels inconvenient when seen. Nerissa ignored him. The token did not carry the fire. Auren looked up. How can you tell? Because it is still pretty. The Damar lord gave one broken laugh that sounded too close to panic. Nerissa pulled gently on the ember strand. The token swung under the hook, flashing black and silver, untouched by the worst heat. But the hook above it glowed red all along the inner curve, scorched where the Dragonfire had pressed before falling. She read the colors aloud. Hook loaded. The sky hook rim burned. Dragonfire strain. The trapped fire pushed eastward. Rival token teat. The black enamel flashed only after the burn line had already formed. Rellan's jaw tightened. Sequence from shine and soot. Very elegant. No, Nerissa said. Very late. The wing guard returned with the upper access ledger clutched in both hands. Its pages were thin sheets of skyglass, linked by bronze heat rings. He landed hard, one wing smoking at the edge from the heat above. Auren took the ledger and held it out to Nerissa. She did not take it. Her hands were threaded into the net. "Open it," she said. He did. The first page showed routine access marks, lantern rig checks, banner tension, patrol lane inspection. Then the Eastern Hook entry appeared. House Damar ceremonial flare inspection. Rellan spoke immediately. There. Nerissa looked at the entry. "Read the time." Auren did. "After sky clearance." Rellan's face remained steady. "Ceremony flare inspections often happen after clearance, not above a sealed heat drag span." The Ember Net strained. Nerissa bit down on a cry as the thread around her right wrist burned hotter. Auren saw the pain. His voice turned colder. "Read the mark beneath it." The page had no mark beneath it. Not at first. Then Nerissa angled the warning strand toward the ledger. A hidden line appeared under the Damar entry in dull black gold heat. Marshal access override. Upper hook released for private adjustment. The court went silent. Rellan bowed. Private adjustment is standard for royal security before treaty rights. Nerissa looked up at the token. Then why was the rival mark tied after the hook had already burned? He did not answer quickly enough. The Ember Net answered instead. Red fire traveled from the skyhook to the Damar token, then down the access ledger, then back through the marshal override. It held sequence. Skyhook opened. Dragonfire tethered. Hook burned under weight. Damar token tit. Marshal override hidden beneath access entry. Sky clearance signed. Procession opened. The warning burned across the upper ledger in red. Rival housemark was tied after Dragonfire was already tethered to the skyhook. The Damar Lord gripped the arch rail, breathing hard. Auren looked from the planted token to Rellan Croft. His voice did not soften. Who hid the marshal override beneath a rival house entry? The upper access ledger shook once in Auren Veyrath's hand. Not from fear. From the glass skybridge groaning beneath him. Above the eastern span, the returned Ember Net held the trapped Dragonfire in a burning red web, but the weight had begun to change. It no longer pressed, only downward. It pulled toward the exposed skyhook, then recoiled, then pressed again, like a chained beast remembering who had fed it. Nerissa Kest stood with her wrists caught in severed heat thread. Breathing through pain, she refused to give the court a spectacle. The warning still burned across the upper ledger. Rival housemark was tied after Dragonfire was already tethered to the skyhook. The Damar Lord stood pale behind the inner arch, one hand clenched around the rail. Sky Marshal Rellan Croft remained beneath the visible hook, his face carved into military patience. Auren's voice did not soften. Who hid the marshal override beneath a rival house entry? Rellan bowed. A false entry inside marshal records is treason, Majesty. That does not make it mine. Nerissa looked at him. No one said mine. His eyes cut to her. Too fast. Auren saw it. So did half the bridge. Rellan recovered. You imply it with every strand you touch. No, Nerissa said. The strand implies sequence. You supply guilt by fearing where it leads. The trapped fire slammed downward. 3 red crossings in the Ember Net turned white at once. Nerissa lifted both hands and twisted the heat thread across her wrists. The net shifted weight from the eastern arch to the center span. Pain flashed bright enough to blur the bridge. She tasted blood where she bit the inside of her cheek. Auren took one step. She did not look at him this time. Do not touch the threads, she said. He stopped. Not soft. Learning. Then tell me what you need. That was not apology. It was better placed than apology. Nerissa nodded toward the upper ledger. The hook entry shows who could access it. It does not show what was hung there. Auren looked up at the trapped Dragonfire. Can the net read source? No. She tightened her fingers around the warning strand. But fire remembers vessel heat. Rellan gave a low laugh. Another worker's proverb. Nerissa's gaze stayed on the hook. Worker proverbs keep kings from falling through decorated glass. The court heard that. Auren did too. He opened the upper ledger wider. What vessel holds unstable dragonfire before a rite? Rellan answered. Only sealed flare urns, patrol stores, treaty lantern reserves, house ceremonial offerings. Bring the flare registry, Auren said. Rellan's jaw tightened. Majesty, the flare registry is kept under martial lock. Auren looked at him. Open it. A guard ran toward the North Tower archive. Nerissa kept the ember strand angled toward the skyhook. The rival token still hung below it, black enamel bright and unburned. Too clean, too late. A lie tied after the danger had already done its work. When the guard returned, he carried a narrow iron case with a dragon seal across its lid. The case smoked at the edges from the heat above. Rellan stepped forward immediately. I will open it, he said. Auren did not hand it to him. He placed the case on the slate table and broke the dragon seal himself. Inside lay thin bronze slips, each one etched with flare movement, house offerings, patrol fire stores, ceremony lanterns, marshal reserves. Nerissa could not touch them without loosening the net, so Auren held the first page where she could see. Rellan's voice remained controlled. House Damar registered 3 ceremonial flare urns. The Damar lord shouted, For the western lantern rite, not the eastern span. Nerissa looked at the trapped fire. Damar flare burns silver at the edge. Auren glanced up. This burns white. Marshal-reserve burns white when unstable. Rellan's face hardened. Marshal-reserve dragonfire is sealed under my office. It cannot be used without order. Nerissa looked at him. Exactly. Silence pressed beneath the fire. Auren turned the registry. There, Nerissa said. One line was nearly invisible, hidden beneath a smear of black gold ash. Marshal-reserve flare urn. Eastern aerial balance test. Auren read the line aloud. Eastern aerial balance test. Rellan bowed. Routine. Empty test. Nerissa shook her head. Not empty. She drew the warning strand across the air. Red light climbed toward the trapped dragonfire, then bent sharply toward the flare registry. The bronze slip warmed. The ash smear burned away. Beneath it was a weight mark. Full. Auren's eyes went cold. Nerissa read the sequence before Rellan could bury it in rank. Marshal-reserve urn opened. The bronze slip flared white at the edge. Skyhook released. The hook burned red above them. Dragonfire tethered. The trapped fire strained east. Rival token teat. The black enamel flashed below the hook. House entry written over martial override. The ledger pulsed black gold. Sky clearance signed. The blue seal flickered weakly in the severed thread. The Ember Net shuddered as if the sequence itself had added weight. Rellan's voice sharpened. Reserve urns are handled by many officers. Nerissa looked at the silver command hook still hanging at his belt, the one he had used to cut down her net. Then give him your hook, she said. Rellan went still. Auren's gaze dropped to the hook. Marshal, he said. Rellan removed it slowly and placed it on the slate. Nerissa angled the warning strand toward it. The hook warmed black gold. Then white fire licked along its inner curve, the same white edge burning inside the trapped dragonfire above them. Not proof of motive. Not confession. Sequence. The Ember Net burned from the command hook to the reserve flare registry, from the registry to the skyhook, from the skyhook to the planted Damar token, and from the token back to the hidden override. A red warning carved itself across the bronze flare slips. Marshal-reserve dragonfire was hung above the eastern span under a hidden override. The Damar lord sank back against the arch. Rellan Croft did not bow now. Auren looked from the burning registry to the trapped fire above his bridge. His voice did not soften. Why was my marshal's dragonfire tied above a treaty crowd? Rellan Croft looked up at the dragonfire he had hidden and, for the first time, did not answer quickly. That pause condemned him more than panic would have. Above the Glass Skybridge, The returned Ember Net held the marshal-reserve flame in a red web so bright every treaty banner looked blood-soaked. The exposed skyhook burned over the eastern span. The planted Damar token hung beneath it, clean and false. The flare registry still glowed with the warning Nerissa Kest had dragged out of buried heat. Marshal-reserve Dragonfire was hung above the eastern span under a hidden override. Dragon King Auren Veyrath stood beside the slate table, the martial command hook between him and Relin. His voice did not soften. Why was my marshal's Dragonfire tied above a treaty crowd? Relin's face settled into something harder than denial. Because treaty crowds believe what burns in front of them, he said. The Damar Lord made a sound behind the inner arch. Auren did not look away from his marshal. You meant to blame House Damar. I meant to preserve Veyrath from fools who think open treaties make the sky safer. Relin's voice rose, not wild, but fierce with the conviction of a man who had dressed fear as duty for too long. The rival houses grow bold when we smile beneath banners. A controlled fall, a damaged span, a planted token, and every wavering lord would have remembered why they need dragon rule. Nerissa's burned fingers tightened around the ember threads. Controlled, she said. Relin looked at her. Until you dragged your ugly net back into the sky. The words struck less sharply than the truth beneath them. He had not expected the net to return. He had not expected the work he despised to survive being cut. Auren's scarred left hand closed over the edge of the slate. You risked envoys, workers, priests, and my court for a political wound you could point at another house. Relin's eyes flashed. I risked a spectacle to prevent a war. No, Nerissa said. You built one. The Ember Net groaned overhead. One white strand snapped. Dragonfire dropped half a body's height. The court screamed. Nerissa threw both arms outward, dragging 3 red threads across her wrists. The net tightened around the fire and hauled it back up, but pain tore through her so sharply her knees nearly folded. Auren moved. This time she did not stop him with a look. He did not touch her. He stepped beside her and braced the western anchor with his scarred left hand, taking heat into flesh already marked by old flame. His jaw clenched, but he held. Nerissa stared at his hand. Not rescue. Support. There was a difference. Tell me what to do, he said. The court heard the Dragon King say it. So did Relin. Nerissa swallowed the pain. Evacuate the outer arches. All of them. No rank exceptions. Then lower the treaty flame into the underwell. It will draw the martial fire down slowly if the net releases by degrees. Relin snapped. That will flood the bridge ribs with heat. No, Nerissa said. Only if someone sealed living heat under gold. Auren's eyes stayed on hers for one beat. Then he turned. Clear the outer arches. Move the treaty flame to the underwell. Safety keepers command the bridge until the sky is clean. The words changed the air. Safety keepers command the bridge. Not marshals. Not ceremony stewards. Not display. Workers moved first, because workers understood danger faster than nobles. Guards followed. Priests carried the treaty flame down through the western service stair, their gold veils trembling. The envoys retreated in tight lines, House Damar among them, no longer accused but not yet healed from the accusation. Relin stepped toward the marshal hook. Auren's sword left its sheath before the marshal touched it. Do not, the Dragon King said. Relin froze. Nerissa did not watch them long. The fire above her was more honest than either man. It had weight, it had pull, it had memory. She lifted the warning strand one final time. The net will not judge him, she said. Auren's gaze remained on Relin. What will it do? Carry sequence. She lowered the first thread. The trapped Dragonfire sank toward the eastern span, then bent toward the underwell where the treaty flame waited below. Red lines burned across the sky in order. Keeper hold filed. Warning strand cut. Martial override dismissed hold. Workers returned beneath heat path. Heat scars covered with treaty gold. Sky clearance signed. Sky hook loaded. Rival token teat. Marshal-reserve fire. Released. The sequence traveled through every object: ledger, hook, anchor, token, registry, and returned net. Then the Glass Skybridge answered. The treaty gold peeled away from every hidden heat scar along the eastern ribs. Black gold ash poured out like old lies. The bridge did not collapse. It breathed. The marshal-reserve Dragonfire flowed downward by degrees, caught and guided by the Ember Net, until it dropped into the underworld with a deep, contained roar. Blue-red flame flashed beneath the glass, then dimmed into safe channels built for old sky failures no one in court had wanted visible. The silence afterward felt larger than the fire. Rellan stood alone beneath the clean sky, his command chained dark around his throat. The Ember Net, no longer stretched to breaking, remained suspended above the bridge as a red lattice against the morning. Not ugly, necessary. Across the rejoined threads, one final warning burned. Sky Marshal Rellan Croft cut the Ember Net to hide martial fire and blame a rival house. Rellan's face went empty. Auren looked at his guards. Remove his chain. The Sky Marshal's command chain was unclasped before the court he had tried to frighten into obedience. The silver hook was taken from the slate and carried to the safety keepers instead. Rellan laughed once, bitter and low. You will let a net maker outrank the sky? Auren looked up at the Ember Net. No, I will let the person who can read danger command where danger stands. Nerissa lowered her hands slowly. The heat threads slipped from her wrists, leaving red marks in the skin. She did not hide them. Auren saw the burns. His face changed. Not enough for forgiveness. Enough for cost. He turned to the court. Envoys, workers, and priests gathered behind the arches. From this day forward, no sky treaty, royal procession, bridge rite, or crown ceremony may remove a safety hold for display. No sky clearance stands above a keeper's falling heat warning. No worker goes beneath an untested span. Safety keepers outrank ceremony on every bridge in Veyrath. The workers bowed first. Not the nobles. Not the envoys. The workers. Nerissa felt that more deeply than applause. Auren came to stand before her, close enough for her to see the old scar on his hand had reopened from the anchor heat. He did not offer it like proof of suffering. He kept it at his side. I cut down what was holding my kingdom above the fire, he said. Nerissa's throat tightened. She did not soften because one correct law did not erase the sound of the court applauding her humiliation. Then do not make me hold it alone again, she said. Auren's eyes stayed on hers. You will not. The Ember Net glowed above them, red threads steady now in the cleared sky. It did not crown Nerissa. It did not bless the Dragon King. It did not turn pain into romance because a powerful man had finally understood it. It simply remained where it should have been from the beginning, between celebration and burning, between pride and disaster, between the beautiful lie and the lives below it.